Hello, and welcome to Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. In each episode of the show, we hear the insightful confessions of a successful leader who wants to inspire others to live their professional and personal dreams. I am always keen to hear your feedback, particularly in relation to the kinds of leaders you would like me to invite onto the show in future. But for now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rich insights from our special guest. Hello and welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader, hosted by me, Andrew Tallents, the self-coaching expert. I'm delighted that Marshall Goldsmith has joined me on the show today. Marshall, welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing your story today. Our audience knows that what we like to do first is just get to know you a little bit. So just describe in your own words a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was brought up in a small town called Valley Station, Kentucky. I went to a little engineering school where I was a crappy student, almost got thrown out, got 5 Ds, but went back last year and gave the commencement address and got an honorary PhD. So that I led an ovation for the bottom of the class. I said, hey, you don't know here. And then I got an MBA at Indiana and a PhD at UCLA. I was a college professor and dean. And then for 47 years, I did 3 things. One, I traveled all around the world speaking and teaching. So I've been to 102 countries. And on American Airlines alone, I have over 11 million frequent flyer miles. Are you in the UK?
I am.
Yeah, I have over 1 million frequent flyer miles on BA, and I don't even live there. So, kind of a mega flyer. And then, but I don't do that anymore. I did that for 47 years. So I'm now off the road. Then I'm most famous for coaching people. So I'm the coach of many famous CEOs, 5 people, CEO of the Year, United States, President World Bank, Mayo Clinic, et cetera, et cetera. And what I love about coaching is that's where I learn things. And then I write books and articles. So I've written or edited about 60 books now. I've got 4 New York Times bestsellers, and I'd say maybe 8 bestsellers. And then the others purchased by my mother, my father, and associated relatives. I've sold about 4 million books. So a few of them, a lot of people bought. Most of them nobody bought, but a few of them, a bunch of people bought. So that's all good. And then I've had a great life, very great life. So I got ranked #1 leadership thinker in the world twice. So this is about leadership. So I am hopefully going to do some good.
And I know you think life's good as well. So I'm looking forward to hearing about your life and more about that. But what you've done there is told us obviously about the career and understand that. But just when you're not necessarily working, what is it that you as a leader and a coach do to switch off to get that recharge time,
Well,
that
actually, I love
regeneration?
what I do. So really, am I working right now? I don't know. I mean, I have really limited desire to play crappy golf with old men while eating chicken salad sandwiches and discussing gallbladder surgeries. So, I love what I do. I'm a Buddhist, and I love Buddhist philosophy and thinking. And so most of my life, I'm reading, thinking, writing, and then just trying to take care of myself. But I love my job. If you call it a job, I guess you could say I have a job. I don't know. I really don't define it as work or not work.
Super. So let's go back to the childhood, and I'm really intrigued about your childhood. And what we know, and you know through all your work, is a lot of what we have as our leadership traits stem back from those early systems that we're exposed to. So what about your early childhood life and memories, and what kind of dreams did you have back then?
Well, I had a very unusual background. My father had a small gas station, and we were brought up very poor. My dad had some idiot idea women shouldn't work, so we just got to be poor. My elementary school, we had an outhouse the first 4 years I was in school. We didn't have indoor plumbing. So, and my high school was ranked #2 from the bottom in Kentucky in academic achievement. And Kentucky is pretty close to the bottom of the United States. So I didn't go to Harvard prep. So I was at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. And what happened is my mother didn't work. So she's a first grade school teacher. All of her energy was devoted to one student, me. I knew how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide before I went to school. Now, you can imagine the school I went to. I show up and the teacher goes, 1 + 1 is 2. I'm going, yeah. I look around the room. No one knows it but me. I said, first day I went home, I said, I'm the smartest person that ever lived. So I'm this little guy. I get his self-image. I am the smartest human being who ever lived. Now, that's been, I'd say, mostly good, somewhat bad in my life, And the good thing is, I'm willing to try things. I never assume anything is correct because somebody tells me that. People I was brought up with, most of what they said, if I thought it was wrong, my assumption was it's wrong, not I'm wrong. It's wrong. And so I was just brought up to believe that, I was just a very smart person. And it's done me a lot of good and obviously some harm too, because then I try to be right too much, win all the time, show off. So yeah, it's been I'd say very positive in a lot of ways. And actually the negative part has been helpful because a lot of my coaching is based on dealing with people who have problems similar to my own.
And let's go back again in terms of those most challenging years, in the sense of what was the relationship like with your father? What did you get from him as a role model at that time when you were maybe in your teens?
Well, my father was a very funny guy. So he didn't give a crap about my career very much. He was just very funny. He's a good guy, good sense of humor. So I've got a good sense of humor, always joking around. And I got that from him predominantly.
Okay, great. So let's talk about what I like to do here, particularly with someone with your maturity, is maybe look at the way that your career has developed and the learning from our childhood and what has informed us, maybe through the decades. So obviously you were one of the brightest kids in school and you were brought up to believe that. But as you were leaving school, what was going on for you then? What were you noticing about your interest in leadership and indeed the way you were leading yourself?
Well, when you say school for me lasted a long, long time. I had one experience that really, I thought about this conversation, highlights just a huge moment for me. I was getting my PhD at UCLA and I was full of myself. I thought I was very profound and deep, and other people were shallow and all I cared about was impressing others. So I spent 3 weeks bashing people in Los Angeles. They're plastic, they're materialistic, they're so shallow. 3 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Of course, my background in Valley Station, Kentucky, obviously qualified me as the world's authority on Los Angeles. But anyway, after 3 weeks of bashing people, my old mentor, guru, Dr. Tannenbaum, scratches his beard and says, "Who are you talking to? Who are you talking to?" I said, "Well, I guess I'm talking to the group." He said, "Who in the group you talking to?" I said, "I guess everybody." He said, "Every time you've spoken, you've looked at one person and seemed interested in the opinion of only one person. Who might that be?" I thought about it. So that's interesting. That would be you. He said, "Why me?" I said, Dr. Tannenbaum, a person with your extreme great background in leadership and understanding of people can understand the true significance of what I'm saying about how stupid it is to impress people all the time, as opposed to more deep things. So old Dr. Tannenbaum scratches his beard. So, Marshall, is there any chance for the last 3 weeks, all you have been doing is trying to impress me? To which I replied, "Well, no." I said, "I'm very disappointed. I think you've missed the significance of everything I just said. I've been telling you how wrong it is to impress people. I think you missed the point." He goes, "I think I understand." I look around the room, I see these 10 heads. I hated his guts for 6 months. 6 months later, what I say? "Thank you, sir. You just taught me a good lesson." That's my job. I became him. That's what I do. That's what I've done for a living.
No, absolutely. And there are challenges in that as well. I know you've spoken openly about this in the past, but certainly in our years of, the 20s, for example, we're impressionable. We've got lots of things going on in relationships, both friends and more deeper relationships. So what did you find most challenging in your 20s as a leader?
Well, most of the time in my early 20s, I was stoned all the time. So I spent 3 months in 1969 hitchhiking across America, and here's a good saying. Someone says, "What happened?" If you can remember what happened, you were not there, right?
Yeah.
So I don't, I'd say what I did do in my early, especially years of PhD, I would never have gotten a PhD today. I mean, today they actually are much more serious.
Yeah.
But UCLA had 173,000 applicants for undergrad this year. So, get a PhD from there today. I guess it would have been possible, but incredibly painful. So back then, I just thought a lot. And, we thought a lot about life. What does all this mean? Which was kind of bad because I didn't learn academically that much, but kind of good because I ended up influencing my life and my writing and everything else.
Yeah, and that reflection is so important as well, which I know if we look at today's world and how difficult it is, particularly for younger people, to create the space to reflect. Looking back on those days, particularly in your maybe late 20s, who became that role model around you that you really felt that you could learn from?
Well, I met Dr. Paul Hersey when I was quite young. And so what happened is I just got lucky. A lot of life is luck. Anybody, by the way, it's very successful says they're not lucky. It's just arrogant.
Yeah.
That's just arrogant. I just got lucky. So here I am. I'm like, I don't know, 20s. And I meet Dr. Paul Hersey, who's the most highly paid consultant in my field in the world. He invented situational leadership with Ken Blanchard. He's a big deal. And I did one thing was smart, man. He invited me to come to his class for free. It was $500 a piece back then. I sat in his class. I said, man, that guy's good. You know what I said? I want to be him when I grow up. I want to be him. Well, he's a big deal. He's a leadership thinker, guru. I want to be Dr. Paul Hersey when I grow up. I sat in the back of the room and took notes. I said, Paul, I'll carry the bags. I'll serve the coffee. You just let me sit here and learn from you. He said, okay. One day he got double booked. I said, can you do what I do? I said, I don't know. He said, I need help. Can you do it? I'm double booked. I said, I don't know. He said, I'll pay $1,000 for a day. I was making $15,000 a year. Back in old outhouse days, $1,000 a day, that sounded like a lot of money to a kid from Kentucky. I said, I'll try. So I got fly to New York to a program for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company. They are phenomenally pissed off because I'm not him. But I get ranked first place of all the speakers. Why? I'm funny, telling stories, jokes. The other guys are showing PowerPoint finance slides. You know, man, we love this kid. Send him again, a little comic relief in this boring shit we're dealing with. They love me. So he calls him up, says, well, so getting ready to get his butt handed to him. I said, look, we were upset. This kid came in front. Send him again. So I said, you want to do this again? Now I'm from Kentucky. I use a Kentucky expression as a bear shit in the woods. Yeah, I'll do this again. $1,000 a day. I'm making $15,000 a year. You just call me up, coach. I'm there. Well, that's how I got into leadership development.
Yeah, it's great. And sometimes we need that look, but you also showed intentionality there. You were very committed in that sense and would have done, I say, anything, and that's important.
You know what I said? I want to be you when I grow up.
Yeah, absolutely. So just talk to the audience then about, they'll be interested in this, how that then emerged and developed into a business, because obviously then you started to employ people. So how did that develop?
What I did is I started out basically doing knockoff Paul Hersey work.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of a Frank Sinatra Jr. character. And I was good at it. I made good money. And he gave me some coaching later that really also changed my life. He said, call me in. And he said, you're making too much money and your clients love you and you're getting great feedback. I'm going, well, okay. What's the bad news here? And the bad news is that you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, selling day after day after day after day. You're not writing, you're not thinking, you're not developing yourself. You'll have a good life, but you could be more. That was such great coaching, which was, you know, because it's hard when you're making money and you're young and you're successful and people love you. It's pretty hard to change. But he was exactly right because, you know, that wasn't my future.
And let's go into that, Marshall. So it's all very well, as we know, hearing that lovely piece of advice or coaching about this is what you should do, and it dawns on us that we should do it, but you just still have to do it. So what was the most challenging part of that, to actually slow down, look at what we're going to do, and just talk us through that?
Well, I started thinking and writing, and a couple of things, two different tracks. One is I always did a lot of volunteer work. So I got to meet Frances Hesselbein, Richard Beckhart. He was a great friend of mine, and Frances Hesselbein was head of the Girl Scouts, and I did a lot of good deeds for her. And then she left the Girl Scouts and formed the Peter Drucker Foundation, introduced me to Peter Drucker. I got to spend 10 years on the advisory board of the Peter Drucker Foundation, which you can't put a price on how valuable that was. I mean, look, I got him ranked #1 leadership thinker in the world. I'm a realist. My brain compared to him, 10-year-old. Man, he wasn't smart. He was in the twilight zone of smart. Well, I was so lucky that I got to spend time with him. So that was life-changing event #1. And then #2, I got into coaching. So I'm working as CEO, and he said, Warner Lambert was a drug company, got bought by Pfizer. He said, I had this kid working for us, young, smart, dedicated, hardworking, driven to achieve, arrogant, stubborn, know-it-all jerk. He said, it would be worth a fortune to me if I could change that kid. I remembered my previous talk. I said, I like fortunes. Maybe I could help him. He said, I doubt it. I said, maybe I could try. He said, I doubt it. I said, look, I'll make a deal. I'll work with this kid for a year. He gets better, pay me. If he don't get better, it's free. You know what he said? Sold. There was nothing called executive coaching. There's no field of coaching. I just made it up.
But it worked.
It worked. He got better and I got paid. 45 years in all my coaching. I didn't get paid if my clients didn't get better. I got paid nothing during the entire assignment. They get better, I get paid. They don't get better, it's free.
Yeah, and that's a model that's stood the test of time, I know. In terms of some of the darker moments, Marshall, let's maybe look at that. We all go through these periods of life, and sometimes it's events around us that shape it in that way. But for you, maybe in the first half of your career, what would you think were the most challenging moments for you?
I would say, just looking back on it, I don't see how I did it. I mean, I was on the road 47 years.
Yep.
11 million frequent flyer miles on one airline. My total of all airlines was like 20 million. I had an insane schedule. And now that I'm off the road, how the hell did I do that? I have no idea how I even did it. I missed 4 weeks of work. My mom died. My dad died. I had a ruptured appendix and COVID. That was it. Other than that, it's showtime. I was out there day after day after day after day on the road. And, if you're on the road all that time, it's not so easy.
Yeah.
Not so easy. So like some young people came to my house. They're like early 30s, getting their PhDs. This kid says, we decided we're going to do what you do when we graduate from PhD school. I said, what's that mean? So we're going to coach their CEOs like you. Listen, this kid, I'm going, well, I don't know if you remember the neighborhood you're driving around here, but I live in a mansion, number one, and not thousands of people living here. And then number two, I do have all these zillion frequent flyer miles, those books and everything. It does involve just a tad of work. Little work is involved, I think you declaring you're going to be me when you grow up will, knock yourself out on that one, buddy.
Absolutely.
You put in all those millions of frequent flyer miles, you write all those books, send me an email. Tell me how it's going for you out there. Well, it doesn't work.
Yeah. No, it's hard. And it's always difficult when you're on the road, as you were doing. And obviously you love the work that you did. But in terms of maintaining the resilience from that perspective, when you were working hard like that, what was the secret for you in terms of making sure that you were able to carry on like that?
I had some great role models. But, one thing I always found inspiration is a couple of things. One, great restaurants.
Yeah.
Where, you go to a 3-star restaurant, it's unbelievable how good the people are. And Broadway's plays. So I have a home in New York 17 years. So I love, on 42nd Street. So I love Broadway plays. And that kid goes out there night after night after night. How about my foot hurts? Nope. I have a headache. Don't think so. I feel bad today. Tough shit. Showtime. Well, that's kind of been my view of, showtime.
Yeah.
You get out there, that's it. You either do it or you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it, don't. But you commit to do it, you go do it.
You've had so much experience in terms of building, the franchise and obviously the Marshall Goldsmith Stakeholder Center coaching program as well, and all the things around that. What's been the most difficult part of that as you were building? Because the great coaches don't always necessarily make the great CEOs to begin with. What was the biggest learning for you there?
Really, I don't manage anybody. I'm not a great leader myself. I have zero interest in doing that. I'm not an expert on most elements of running a business. I'm far from being. I know nothing about strategy, marketing, finance. I really don't know anything about it. And, my lack of ability is exceeded by my lack of motivation. So not only did I ever know anything, I had no desire to learn that stuff. They know, my clients know 100 times more than me. They don't need me to tell them about business, right? So I just focus on doing what I do. And really, my big area of expertise is thinking and then speaking and writing. That's it. And now, what I did do, I went to a program called Design the Life You Love. So a woman said, who are your heroes? This changed my life too. Well, my heroes are people like Paul Hersey, and Ken Blanchard and Warren Bennis and Francis Hesselbein and Alan Mulally. Some of my alleged coaching clients are actually my heroes, right? Shit. The fact that I was their coach is kind of a joke anyway, because I learned about 20 times from them what they learned from me, which is fine. And I got paid. So life is good. Life is good. So anyway, she said, you should be like your heroes. And there were kind and generous people that didn't charge me money. So I decided to give away everything I know for free. So I I decided I'm going to adopt 15 people, teach them all I know for free. So I made a little video and put it on LinkedIn. I don't know what I was thinking. I made a video, put it on LinkedIn. I'm thinking 100 people will apply and I will adopt 15. No, 18,000 people applied to be adopted. Well, now there's like 400 people, so the program's called the 100 Coaches Program, which is a wonderful program. So that was that was a big deal. And now my big project now is Marshall Goldsmith.ai. So all my stuff is, I always want to give everything away for free. I've got enough money. There's no material things can make any difference. I don't need that much. My house is fine. My car is fine. My kids are fine. Even better, my grandkids are fine. My grandkids have a dog. I don't even have to take care of their dog. I get to go play with the dog. I don't even have to take care of the dog. Life is good. So I just want to give everything away now, which is nice.
Yeah, and we'll talk about AI in a few minutes. I really would appreciate your view on that. But let's go to, you've talked about the grandkids there. There's a real interesting dynamic going on in many organizations that you'll be aware of as well, where we've got the 5 generations now within one organization. And obviously the oldest generation is very different to the newest generation coming through. What have you been seeing with that? What do you think are the challenges? What are you noticing?
Well, it's very interesting you mentioned that, because I talked about that yesterday. I'm working on a new book. I'm working on 10 new books, but one of my new books is with John Byrne. John Byrne developed something called Poets and Quants, which is the MBA magazine. So he is the expert on MBAs. And Pino Audia, for years, I was a professor at Dartmouth, then executive ed. Pino's professor at Dartmouth. So we're writing a book together. And we're talking about the younger workforce. Young, but it's not a random sample, but young, very smart, high potential people. And what are their challenges? Some really interesting challenges. One is they are unbelievably naive about businesses. I mean, to me, it's mind blowing. Peter Drucker obviously was not taught in their school. They're unbelievably naive. I mean, there are companies, they must take in money, and they have customers, and they make these people happy, and they pay them, and they have investors, and investors want returns. They don't get this stuff at all. So a lot of interesting things. I'll just give you a couple of highlights.
Yeah, that'd be great.
One of the biggest problems young people have when they go to work today is, what their big theme is? Show me what it takes. Tell me what to do. In other words, how do I make an A? Unfortunately, our education system, here's what happened. A couple of phenomena. One is the pressure for kids to be achievers is insane today. My daughter's a professor at Vanderbilt. They admitted 4.5% of their applicants, 4.5%. UCLA, like I said, 173,000 applications. These kids are so driven to make an A, it is unbelievable, number one. Number two, their parents are involved in their lives. I mean, I went to my old undergrad school. They talk to their parents 3-4 times a day. So these kids have been driven to achieve, to make A's. Now they go to work, right? And you know what they want? Tell me how to make an A. That's it. Tell me how, and they expect to get promoted all the time because they've been told they're the second coming of God's. In the old days, this is a very interesting question. In the old days, the student was afraid of the teacher. Today, the teachers are afraid of students. They all get evaluated by the students. They're afraid they're going to say the wrong things. All they do is suck up to the students. So grade inflation is insane around the world. I'm sure the UK is no better. Grade inflation is insane. So you're dealing, and it's not the young people are better or worse. People are people. They're just coming in with a very different mindset. And a lot of them, what they really need? They need to learn business 101, because they're not dumb or stupid people. They're smart people. But they expect the company's going to give a shit about their experience of meaning in life. Well, what they don't understand is, one, there are people called shareholders. They could care less about your experience of meaning in life, right? And they don't want the company to invest in that. And you got another group called customers. They don't want to pay for it either. So I'm big on meaning in life. I think it's a very important question, and you should work on it. But to expect their company are going to give that to you, it ain't going to be happening, kid. You got to grow up here.
I love that. And let's talk about the older generation as well, because what I'm sensing, and you'll have more experience in this recently, but I'm sensing in some CEOs of the oldest generation, there's a slight little bit of resentment building because they obviously had to go through the hard yards and learn business, and yet some of the younger are saying, well, I don't want to do that. So are you seeing any of that in terms of that kind of
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that is. It's always historically a trend of
yeah,
old people, young people, all that stuff. I think that yeah, a little bit of that. Here's what I saw happening many years ago. I predicted something would happen. Many years ago, I went to something called the Renaissance Weekend. They had all these fancy people there, and they had a bunch of CEOs, but they had a bunch of these techie kids. And the techie kids were making so much money, they were dwarfing the CEOs' salaries. And the CEOs, I could see them.
yeah.
You know, I told my wife, CEO compensation is going to go up and up and up starting now. And it did.
Mm-hmm.
It had nothing to do with anything other than I can't let these kids make more than me. That's all it was. Yeah. And CEO compensation went up and up and up. So now we have, I'm going to write another new book about this. It's incredible focus on what I call hyper success. So what you see in almost any field today is this extreme focus. If you look at a distribution curve, at the end of the distribution curve, in so many ways. I mean, I'm an example. On LinkedIn, all right, I have 1.5 million followers. Now, what is that? Maybe number 1 out of every 2 million. Some of 0.000005. The person with one more zero than I have is so far ahead of me, you can't even count. So what's happened, the net worth difference between the richest person in the world and number 10 is greater than the difference between number 10 and 0. So what happens now is we have this extreme focus on extreme success. And kids, I mean smart kids. I had young people at my home last year. I had a bunch of them, and 20 were graduates of the top 20 MBA schools. They were depressed. One kid, I'm reading this note, he says, he's making $350,000 a year. He's got an MBA from Harvard. He's 30 years old. He feels like a loser. I'm going, well, that's a strange definition of loser here. If I were your dad, I'd say, you kind of doing okay, kid. Well, here's what happens. Imagine he graduated in the middle of his class at Harvard, middle of the class. But he still graduated middle class at Harvard Business School. The people behind him, not that far behind. People ahead of him, they're in another planet. And what he's doing is he's looking at these people and their success seems to trivialize his success. As opposed to saying, compared to what? I'm doing great. So we live in a different world. And Jonathan Haidt wrote a great book called The Anxious Generation. And it's about the horrific impact of smartphones on kids.
I agree. And we have to deal with all of this. And I'm just going to move into AI now as is linked to that. And obviously you've got Marshall.ai, and I'm seeing AI now doing good in organizations. But I believe that if AI goes to where it's going to go, what it means is we have the importance of relationship right in the focus of human beings in the workplace and outside. So what's your view about what AI will do to enable humans to, live their lives in different ways going forward?
Well, I'm obviously very big on what I do. I've spent hundreds of hours on mine. And it is mind-blowing. For example, my daughter asked my AI, how's your coaching related to utilitarian philosophy? Wow. I don't even know what utilitarian philosophy is. It studies utilitarian philosophy. It studies my coaching. It figures out exactly how it is related to my coaching. It then says, how would Marshall Goldsmith answer this question if he had done this research? It answers it exactly like I would answer it, soon to be in my voice in 44 languages in 5 seconds. I mean, it is mind-blowing. So I love this stuff. I mean, for me, it's just been fantastic. I am, I'm not naive. I realize there's a lot of horrendous things are going to happen here, but I'm not an expert on those. I'm actually not an expert on most macro level things. So my area of expertise is things that relate to individuals dealing with individuals, leaders dealing with people, humans dealing with humans. But big society things, I can't be an expert on everything.
No, absolutely. So if we look back now on your career, Marshall, and we look at, I guess, the things that you might have done differently in hindsight, is there anything that comes to mind immediately for you that, if I could maybe have my time again, I might do this?
I get asked that question all the time. I got a great answer to that question. The answer is absolutely zero.
Okay.
I would not change one thing. See, I like science fiction. And I watch a lot of science fiction movies. You change the timeline, it could get better and it could get worse. Look, I was in an outhouse there back in Valley Station, Kentucky, and now my neighbors are, let's see, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban and Taylor Swift. You know what? I'm good. I'm good. I got a nice life. I'm happy with what I do. I'm having a good time. What would I change? Zero. Now, it's not like I haven't made mistakes. I made tons of mistakes. Here's the problem. If you erase the mistake, you erase everything you learned from the mistake. You can't learn from the mistake without making it. So what would I change? I can answer that question very, very quickly. Absolutely nothing.
Thank you. And one question about the coaches that are out there maybe listening to this, who are coaching the leaders that also listen to this. How do you see that landscape changing in the next 5 to 10 years? What is it that maybe?
Huge.
Yeah.
It is huge. I know mostly we don't have coaches. Mostly we have leaders. But one bit of advice for coaches.
Yeah.
You got to build a brand. Look, in the old days, unemployed people in America were called realtors. Now they're called life coaches. There are thousands of these people are being, quote, certified out there, right? If you don't have something unique and special, this market it's going to just go straight down. So my advice to coaches is build your own brand. The other thing is coaches tend to have an aversion to marketing and self-promotion. They are so bad at that. And I tell them, look, do you believe in yourself? Peter Drucker said, we're here on earth to make the world a better place, not to prove we're smart and right. So I always ask these coaches, if you became more influential, would the world be better? Well, yeah. Does trying to become more influential make you feel uncomfortable? Yeah. No, this is a punchline. Okay, what do you care about? Making the world better, being comfortable? Get over it. Build a brand. Get out there, become influential. You don't want to, don't sit there and whine. You don't want to do it, don't. But if you're going to be successful today as a coach, you got to build your own brand and you got to have personal credibility. And if you don't, you're a commodity.
Now, you may answer this in a certain way, but it's just come to me now. Let's say you could go back in time because of the science fiction link, and you could go back to that boy in the class that just worked out that he's the brightest in the class and has been thinking that. What advice would you give to that boy about how to live his life?
How to do what?
Live his life.
Live life, enjoy it. Well, I've got the same advice for everybody. Okay, this is my biggest advice for everybody listening. Take a breath. Imagine you're 95 years old and you're just going to die. But right before you take that breath, you give it a great gift. The ability to go back in time and talk to the person who's listening to me right now. What advice would the wise 95-year-old you, who knows what mattered in life and what did not matter and what was important and what was not important, what advice that wise old person have for the you that's listening to me right now? Well, just think, what advice would that person have? Whatever you're thinking now, do that. In terms of a performance appraisal, that's the only one that matters. That old person says you did the right thing, you did. That old person says you're making a mistake, you did. You have to impress anybody else. Some friends of mine interviewed old folks who are dying, got to ask the question, what advice would you have? 3 themes. On the personal side, theme 1, be happy now. Be happy now, not next week, not next month, not next year. The great Western disease, I will be happy when? When I get the money, status, BMW, condominium, I will be happy when? When's that old man looking to die? Be happy now. Learning point number 2, friends and family. Never get so busy climbing the ladder of success, you forget the people you love. And then number 3, if you have a dream, go for it. You'll go for it when you're 45. You may not when you're 85. And business 5 says it's much different. Number 1, life is short. Have fun. If you're not having fun at what you do, in your job, you don't enjoy it, you don't find it's meaningful, look, show up, smile, kiss ass, act friendly, and get another damn job as soon as you can and get the hell out. Does that make sense?
It does. And Marshall, I've loved listening to the journey that you've been on, and I really appreciate the time that you've given to our audience today. And I just want to say thank you for being on the show again.
Oh, thank you. And my audience out there, my goal is hopefully help you have just a little better life. So thank you for inviting me. If one person listening has just a little better life based on anything you and I talked about today, this has been a very good use of my time.
Thanks, Marshall.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Confessions of a Successful Leader. You can access all previous episodes of the show at confessionsofaSuccessfulLeader.com. If you are interested in finding out more about conscious leadership and self-coaching, just type in Andrew Tallents into LinkedIn or your favorite browser, and you'll find my contact details and all the content that you need. Until next time, don't forget to stay present, curious, and above all, conscious.